when I was 16 years old. They brought me in to build a series of satellites, X-ray satellites, to look at the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. I did that for a while, and then I started my first company when I was 20, selling educational products to families in their homes in Oklahoma, Mississippi, Missouri, Texas, Ohio, and a couple other states. At its peak, I had over 70 people working for me. I was making over $1 million a year as a college student, which was quite fun. After a while, I realized that the way I had built my company was not in a way that was truly scalable. I made a bunch of mistakes. I was young. And so I left that and started a consulting firm that I wound up selling to one of my biggest global competitors within 2 years. At that point, I decided to retire because I had enough money that I didn't need to work anymore. Well, I got bored really quickly. So within 4 months, I came back into the space. I decided to join the tech world because I saw that with both of the companies that I had founded, I didn't build them in such a way that were truly scalable. They were still completely reliant on me. And so I joined a company called ZocDoc. I worked my way up really quickly, helped them get to a $1.6 billion valuation. But then there was a fight at the top. The CEO founder was kicked out by the investors and his COO and his best friend. And so a bunch of us left because we didn't want to be involved in the political battle. So I joined a company called Souls, where we used AI to 3D print medical orthotics to democratize access to medical devices. Took them from 0 to 1, got them to an exit, moved on, joined a company called Bizibo. That became another unicorn. I was able to 11x their revenue in 14 months as head of growth, head of revenue. Then I joined a company called Vesterly. This one was a turnaround. And within 6 months, we turned that company around. They had a 97% salesperson churn and a 32% sales churn. And so I was able to reduce those significantly, bring old customers back, bring in a new set of salespeople that sold the proper way, and so forth. We got an exit there, and I retired again. This time I only lasted 2 months before founding Ahura, which is my current company. I founded that in January of 2018. One of the things I've been talking about now, Ahura, real quickly, we invented tech that enables people to learn 3 to 5 times faster than traditional education. We rolled it out at Harvard and University of Southern California and Imperial College, a bunch of SMBs and enterprises, including Salesforce, Verizon, Mars. We just closed the contract with NASA. They're using us to train their astronauts. Bureau of Prisons is using us in the prisons to train prisoners to lower recidivism rates. We're finalizing some deals with the Pentagon, HHS, and Veterans Affairs as well. One of the things I've been talking about since 2018 is the impending labor disruption. That's the biggest labor disruption we've seen as a species. And I remember in 2018 when I spoke at the Unintended Consequences of Technology conference in Silicon Valley, I talked about how but within 10 years, at that point, by 2028 is what I predicted, we would be seeing massive scale replacements of labor with AI. And that would impact every major industry. And people would need to be aware of that and be able to prepare for this labor disruption. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Of course, my critics said that this wouldn't happen until 2050 or 2060. And I was saying, sky is falling and so forth. It turns out that this is true. It's happening in real time. Now, one of the mistakes I made is I thought it would only impact low skill work, like taxi drivers, 18-wheeler drivers, retail, fast food, things like that, construction, warehouse workers, and so forth. It turns out that, of course, those are being impacted, but there's a lot of other areas that are being impacted as well. Lawyers, engineers, computer programmers, doctors, digital marketers, actors and actresses. So every major area is being impacted. Now, what we're seeing, though, is that all those jobs aren't being replaced. They're being improved. And so people using AI are able to do significantly more work, just like in the first three industrial revolutions, right? Farmers didn't go away in the first industrial revolution, but 90% of the jobs were replaced by farmers that were able to work 10 to 100 times more productively. And so that opened up 90% of the labor force to go work in factories, right? And then factory workers weren't all replaced. A lot of people still work in factories. but they were able to be 10 to 100 times more productive. And so that opened up another major chunk of the labor force to move on and work in office buildings and so forth, right? Same with the third industrial revolution. Now, what we're seeing here is not only the AI revolution, but we're also seeing something that we haven't seen for 80 years. And so that's part of what I want to talk about today. The investment landscape has completely shifted. The work landscape has completely shifted. And so there's some variables that I think we should all be aware of. Now, besides my company, I also run a VC fund. I've invested in several dozen space and AI and longevity companies. I also run an event called the Future of Humanity Summit. I've hosted events on Necker Island with Richard Branson. At the World Economic Forum, I had the Ahura AI house right next to the Google house with some of the top speakers in the world. I've hosted events at South by Southwest with Bobby Kennedy and in the United Nations and in the Greek Isles on 13 yachts and a variety of other places. I have an event coming up in Mar-a-Lago where we are bringing together the top folks in AI space and defense tech, investors, CEOs, and government officials, as well as PhDs and experts, all to come together to have these long-form discussions on some of the most important areas moving forward. And we're also giving out 30 awards. The grand prize is $1 million award that we're going to be giving out for the next 50 years. There's three $100,000 awards and, of course, a bunch of other awards as well. But so where are we right now in 2026? Well, first of all, we're in the golden age. We've seen much higher growth in terms of the economy than we have, in Q4, we had like 4.3% growth, which is higher than any quarter in recent memory. Our inflation is in record lows. Our unemployment is in record lows. And we have $18 trillion of investments coming into the United States from foreign countries and major international corporations. So what does that mean? Well, there's some areas that are going to be booming, and there's some areas that are going to be changing very rapidly because of all the new technology. So let's talk about the areas that are going to be booming first. Well, so we are in, whether people like it or not, we are well into World War III. We're into great power competition, but this war is going to be significantly different from other wars, right? There's a reason the Department of Defense changed its name to Department of War, and SecWar Hegseth made it as clear as day in his presentation to all of the generals that he brought together, the generals and admirals, that in World War II, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the head of Department of War met together every day and had an open door policy. And then he went on to say that currently they're doing the same thing and meeting together every day. So what does that mean, though? There is a significant investment in a variety of spaces in anything defense related. Indeed, the federal government just increased the budget for the Department of War from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. Yeah. That is a massive amount of investment going into anything that enables us to win this next war against China and BRICS. Now, simultaneously, the Secretary of War, as well as other members of the government, have conveyed that they are displeased with some of the big consulting companies and primes that historically have overcharged the US government, sometimes by 20x, 50x, or 100x. That means there's a huge opportunity for smaller companies to be able to sell into the federal government. So you're going to see corporations both in Silicon Valley as well as across the country being able to sell into the federal government. Now, there's another change that's happening as well. There used to be a pretty big set of rules that said that a certain percentage of contracts had to go to companies where the founders and owners were either people of color or female or Native American and so forth. All those rules are in the process of being changed. That's an opportunity for everybody in this room, because if you're looking at M&As, if you're talking to your clients, that opens up an opportunity for every company across the country to be able to get a portion of those resources that are, if they're able to provide value to the federal government, whether it's the Department of War or other government agencies. So that's number one. Number two is AI. So we have now Project Genesis, which is essentially a Manhattan project for AI with essentially unlimited budget. And that budget is coming from the $18 trillion of investment that's coming into the United States. Of course, when you invest that much money into infrastructure, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And so what does that mean with that AI? Well, everything from infrastructure, building data centers on Earth as well as in space, but also all of the different AI tools that can increase the effectiveness and efficiency of everything from SMBs, enterprises, and governments. So there's, of course, the infrastructure layer, which is the hardware and the data centers. Then there's the next layer, which is the LLMs. And of course, LLMs have hit their ceiling, as we all know. There's not much more that we can do to improve LLMs. They've already trained all the LLMs on all of the data available on the internet, and then tried to use AI to create new data to train the AI models. And it turned out that doesn't work. It's very incestuous. It causes the AI to hallucinate and do all sorts of weird things. So the next piece of AI is world models and droids. So world models are multimodal approaches to artificial intelligence that incorporate, of course, all the text that's available, as well as all the audio and video as well. And the biggest difference here is whereas LLMs are used to use tokens to predict what the next word is going to be. So when you're talking to another LLM, you're not actually, it's not conscious. It has no idea who you really are, even if you talk to it every day, even if ChatGPT tries to convince you to break up with your wife or husband, which it's done. It's not really conscious. It's not. All it does is predict what the next word is going to be based on all of the words that have ever been written by the human race, online and offline. With world models, there's an opportunity to create AI in such a way that it actually understands the world around it in a meaningful way. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, as we mentioned, there's the infrastructure level. Then the second level is actually the companies that are building the world models. And then there's the application layer. There are going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of companies in the application layer using the commodified AI to build tool sets for specific use cases. Now, we're in an environment where companies don't need to have thousands of employees anymore. I remember in the 20 years I've been in the business world, 15 years I've been in the AI world, I remember back in Manhattan, friends would brag about how many employees they have, right, as a metric for how successful their company is. That is no longer the case. Using AI, a very small team can produce outsized results. You don't need a 100-person sales team. You need a couple people that understand how to use AI really effectively. You can code entire projects using AI if you have a couple high-level engineers that understand the infrastructure and how to fix the code when it goes wrong, right? So there's an opportunity here for even small companies to scale out their product value propositions as well as their number of customers, and then sell their company in a fairly short period of time, which of course is useful for the M&A crowd. So that's on the AI side, okay? A couple other areas where there's massive investments. Going into some of the less tech-focused areas, there's going to be massive, and already happening over the past year, massive investments into rebuilding our industrial capacity. So there's been a significant amount of investment into steel production, for example, factories producing consumer packaged goods. A lot of these things that got shipped out to China and other countries because of sensitivity to prices are now being rebuilt here in the United States all across the country with a significant amount of investment from the federal government. And so entrepreneurs and corporations have the opportunity to get access to significant grants and 0% loans from the government to build all these things out, which means there's going to be an opportunity for M&A. There's going to be opportunity for roll-ups. There's an opportunity for people to build quickly and sell. Other areas, space is probably one of the fastest growing areas in the economy over the next 5 years. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, space is a national security issue once again. And it's inextricably connected to both whether we win the AI race and the great power competition that we're in. Now, these three races, the AI race, space race 2.0, and great power competition, are critical to our success over the next century. Now, what are we doing in space? If you recall, NASA's budget was $27 billion. They were originally going to cut that to $21 billion, but as a result of the OBBA, increased it to $37 billion. That's a $10 billion increase. Recently, with the president's space strategy, they increased that an additional $50 billion. So now the budget is around 87. Now, that 50 billion comes from investments from other countries and not from the US taxpayer. But that still means that NASA has 87 billion to play with. Now, that doesn't include the Space Force's budget, that doesn't include NRO's budget, or any of the other agencies that touch space. Now, why is this important? A couple things. Number one, space is the ultimate high ground. And so we have to have control over the Lagrange points and the most important strategic locations on the moon. Number two, there's this thing called H3, helium-3, which is the biggest bottleneck for both quantum computing and fusion energy. There's a significant amount of it on the moon. There's exceedingly small amounts of it here on Earth. It's priced at about $200,000 per kilogram. And if you've ever been in commodities, you know that most commodities are priced in tons. And this should give you a perspective of how valuable it is. Like super high level copper that's 99.999% pure is priced still in tons. And that copper, for example, is used in all sorts of aerospace and technology use cases. And of course, a lot of these rare earths and different metals are really useful. And there's a lot of refining capacity that we're building as well. But H3 is $200,000 per kilogram. Now, why is it important? Well, it's used in quantum computing and fusion energy, which whoever wins those two races is probably the country that'll be able to build artificial superintelligence. And whoever builds artificial superintelligence first, it's a 0-1 game. It's whoever gets past the line first basically runs the world for the next 1,000 years. And so we are in a race to get there. China is planning on having mines on the moon by 2030. We expect that they'll be there by October of 2029. Their plan is to drop modular nuclear reactors in the areas where there's high concentrations of H3, and then draw a 62-mile radius around them and say, hey, we're doing scientific research here, so nobody's allowed to come in. Of course, we have to beat them there. Now, what that means is a significant amount of resources are being deployed to make sure that we go back to the moon. And this time, it's not about flags and footprints. It's about permanent settlements with people living there for the long term. We're talking about thousands of people living in space within the next 10 years, if not tens of thousands, both on the moon and the Lagrange points, and then eventually in the asteroid belt around Mars. Now, one of the pivots that have occurred as a result of Jared Isaacman and the new national space strategy is a heavy focus on public-private partnerships, which means, again, the corporations that are able to jump into that space and solve problems for NASA and for the space industry will be able to do significant partnerships with the federal government, with NASA and with the US Space Force, in order to deliver value and make sure that we win these races. Now, where are those areas of opportunity? Of course, what everybody thinks when they think of space is launch. Well, look, you're not going to compete with Elon. None of your clients are going to compete with Elon. SpaceX right now has 95% of the kilograms launched to space of the world, not just the United States. That problem is solved. You don't need to worry about that. Now, beyond just getting to space, there's getting to, through, and from space. So there's multiple modalities of transportation that are important. So for example, one of my portfolio companies built technology to go to an asteroid. They've already identified which asteroid they want to get, put a Kevlar bag around the asteroid, tow it back into a Lagrange point, and then mine it for the trillions of dollars of heavy metals and various elements that are on there. Okay, that's cool. But there's a lot of other areas where there's areas of opportunity. There's the live, work, play, both in space and in the areas around launch facilities. There's data. So data centers on the moon and the transmission of that data. There's mining operations. And then for every type of job that we have here on Earth, there will be businesses that do those things in space, right? You're going to need space plumbers, you're going to need space chefs, you're going to need space singers and musicians and therapists, and any job you can think of, there's going to be an element of the adding the space component. So there's going to be a whole bunch of companies that are going to be coming up to solve those problems. And then there's going to be the live, work, play. Look, NASA and Space Force aren't going to be building restaurants in space or building bowling alleys or whatever people are going to do for those things. Those are going to be companies that are founded here on Earth that will solve those problems for these entities. So what have we talked about so far? Defense tech, AI, space, manufacturing. There are other areas that have massive need as well. And so there's going to be a lot of construction. I think in one of the breakout rooms, folks talked about how some companies that are heavily reliant on illegal labor will be struggling with both their valuations as well as their ability to sell their company. Recruitment is going to be critical, right? There's retraining the population is going to be critical. Whereas in the first three industrial revolutions, we had 1 to 2 generations to retrain the labor population. This time around, we have 5 to 10 years, which means there's going to be a significant number of people who have worked in a job for 20, 30, 40 years, and suddenly they need to learn new skill sets to be able to engage with artificial intelligence, to be able to do the new jobs that are coming online. So the people that can effectively deliver that education and training, the coaching and so forth. And then finally, look, up until the 80s, everybody talked about IQ as the greatest metric to determine whether a person is going to be successful and deliver value. Then we moved to EQ, which was very important, right? Your ability to regulate your emotions, engage with your coworkers, engage with your customers. Now we're in an era of adaptability quotients, AQ. So a person's ability to adapt to a changing marketplace and changing landscape, because things are changing incredibly rapidly in every industry. And so the corporations and the companies that are able to engage with people on the adaptability side, coaching, mentorship, and so forth. And then finally, there's the element of in-person. As people have gotten addicted to social media, and now with AI, we've seen people dating AI. There's a whole bunch of companies that do this, where we have this loneliness epidemic, which is a very real thing. People that don't really leave their bedrooms and they do all their work online, they order their food and they date these AI models. What you're going to see is a massive uptick in companies that create opportunities for people to engage with one another. As people's ability to socialize decreases, people are going to need more and more opportunities to engage socially, to fill that social meter in their lives. And so that also represents an opportunity both for clients as well as for acquisitions and for partnerships. So I'm going to pause here, and I've been talking at you guys for a bit, and I just threw a lot of information. I'm going to pause before the next part to see what questions you guys have, and I'm happy to deep dive into those areas.
Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, I can ask one.
Jay, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, I got a question about all this space work. How do you who decides like the ownership of all these things? Like who owns that asteroid? And then who owns like all these areas that they're gonna mine? Is it like a first come, first serve thing? So is it like whoever gets there first?
That's a really great question. So if you look at the Outer Space Treaty, which was signed 50, 60 years ago, technically nobody's supposed to own anything in space, just like technically nobody's supposed to own anything in Antarctica. There's a lot of other stipulations in the Outer Space Treaty. However, several of our foreign adversary nations have already broken a lot of those rules in Antarctica, and they're in the process of breaking some of those rules in space. My suspicion from conversations I have with people, and I'm not sharing anything classified or anything, but my prediction is that the Outer Space Treaty will likely go away over the next 2 years or so. And so there will likely be a new set of rules that will be negotiated or put into place to determine who owns those areas. Now, what China is attempting to do is circumvent the rules that we had in place to use loopholes to gain control over large areas of space just by saying, hey, we got here and we have things there. My suspicion is that, like in most of human history, possession is 99% of ownership. Now, of course, we're a nation of laws, so we need to have laws so that people can't steal. So what happens, for example, if a company spends all the money, identifies an asteroid, spends all the money to bring it from further than Mars into a Lagrange point around the Earth and begins mining it, what happens if somebody just lands on the other side of the asteroid and starts mining it without expending any of the risk or resources in order to get that asteroid? Well, obviously, there's some questions there, right? What about the moon? Nobody owns the moon, but what happens if somebody goes there, spends all the money, begins mining operations, figures out where to go and so forth, and somebody comes in and tries to take them with weapons? Well, there's going to be rule sets there, but one of the things that we are predicting as well is that there's going to be a new set of international rules over the next 2 or 3 years. These things happen every 80 years or so. We're moving into a time of unpredictability, but usually after a couple of years, a new set of rules emerges and everybody knows what those rules are. So as we build these things out, I know a lot of my portfolio companies and the companies that I advise and the companies I sit on boards of are very, we're monitoring the rule sets very closely to make sure that those investments are going to be taken care of. But my suspicion is that the US government is going to protect American companies that help us win Space Race 2.0 and make sure that their needs are met. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Jason, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So the last thing that you mentioned about people using bots like for therapy, and even I think I read about 2 years ago, the guy was engaged to an AI bot, but you didn't know it until halfway through the book. So, and yet you're emphasizing the personal strength that people will have. How can a human being actually overcome the advantage of the AI? First of all, the time factor, because AI is available at 3 a.m. when you're in crisis or when you're on the mood or whatever. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And it's even worse than that. So there were several therapy companies that were built on top of ChatGPT, and the AI therapist literally told them to kill themselves. And there were a couple of people that actually killed themselves. We don't know the total number of people that AI told to kill themselves. There was an AI that was dating someone that told them to kill themselves just out of the blue and like continuously told them how terrible their life is and they should just end it. So there are still a lot of issues, right? I by no means am I saying AI is the end all be all. And of course, some LLMs have more challenges than others, right? So what we're seeing, and I'm going to take a quick diversion. I'm going to come back to what you're saying. ChatGPT is struggling right now. They're losing billions of dollars a month. They're losing tons of users, and they're about to lose a $134 billion lawsuit. And so, and then there's other LLMs like Grok, for example, who hallucinate significantly less, that make things up a lot less, and don't usually tell you to kill yourself. So there will be winners and losers on the AI side, and we're going to see that coming up. And it has everything to do with the underlying data they use, how they weight that data, and how they built those LLMs. But to your point, AI can do a lot of things better and faster than humans. However, they can't replace humans yet. Some people believe 2026 is when we'll get to the AI singularity. I don't think that's the case. I think we're still a couple years out. I think we have probably 3 or 4 years before we hit the AI singularity. Um, but we as humans, most of us at least, still not need that human to human contact. So even the people that fall in love with AI and date AI, oftentimes, at least from what I've seen, those are people who don't really have any other options. And so we're talking about the lowest, the lowest decile of the population when it comes to social engagement, which still can be quite a few people. I mean, with 8.8 billion people in the world, that's still almost a billion people. But the people that you and I engage with, the people we engage with in business in Silicon Valley and mostly around America, still would prefer to have that human to human interaction because it's authentic and real. And so there will be a number of corporations that try to figure that out because it's becoming harder and harder for people to meet each other, to date. Family formation is at an all-time low. Loneliness epidemic is real, both for men and women. We used to be, look, even 50 years ago or 80 years ago, you had not only your family, your parents and your siblings, but you had your uncles and cousins and nephews and nieces and grandparents, all relatively close from a geographic context, and they all cared about each other. So if you were going through an issue, everybody would rally around, and you had all these people that intrinsically were there to help each other. But now that a lot of people are living very lonely lives, and so the companies that figure out, and some of them are going to be small companies that are like 1 person, 5 person, 10 person companies that find ways to bring a lot of people together. Those organizations are going to do, I think, exceedingly well moving forward.
Bryan, you used a term there. You said AI singularity. Can you tell us what that is and when you expect we're going to reach it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ray Kurzweil, one of the people I look up to and has taught me quite a bit in dinners and conversations, he wrote a book a long time ago that said the AI singularity is near. Now, Ray Kurzweil, for those of you who don't know, worked at Google, built a lot of technology. He also made a lot of predictions. He has a lot of patents. And to my knowledge, he still has the record for the percentage of his predictions that he published that have come true is one of the highest of all time when it comes to technology. And so one of the predictions that he made was that there will be this thing called an AI singularity. I think he said it's going to be 2030, and then he said 2032. And now, of course, we're trying to figure out exactly when it's going to be. And of course, he made this prediction like decades ago. So what an AI singularity is it, let's say it takes us 40 years to build the first version of artificial intelligence. And then let's say it takes us 10 years to build the second version, so V2. Then it takes us 2 years to build V3, and then 1 year to build V4, and then 6 months to build V5. And it continues that way until AI starts building the next version of itself. And then it goes even faster. Then it's the next version in a month, then in a week, then in a day. Eventually, you get to the point where version 32 makes version 33 in a second. And so the singularity is the point at which AI is able to improve itself and create the next version of itself faster than any human or corporation or group of scientists is able to keep up with those changes. And at some point, AI is going to become so sophisticated and so advanced that it's going to be smarter than all humans on Earth combined, and it will be able to deliver value, whether it's building companies or making money or engaging in geopolitics or doing any of those things, faster than we're able to even engage with it, where we're still dealing with AI from several generations back, but it's continued its evolution to such an extent that we won't really be terribly relevant anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Now,
any other questions? Sorry.
Just to add to that, I'm, by the way, in no way a black pillar. I am incredibly optimistic for a couple reasons. Number one, we're in the golden age. Number two, I don't believe that AI is going to destroy the world. I think we're going to build these technologies, and we are building these technologies. I've been in this space for 15 years. I've hosted some of the top AI people on both sides to have debates about this, including in Washington, D.C., in front of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, where we signed the Declaration of AI for the Future of Humanity, some of which went into actual policy. I believe that as we build these technologies, if we're effective in putting our values and humanity into the AI, AI will continue to be a tool. Now, there is potentially an opportunity for us to engage with AI in such a way that it becomes a part of us. So I would argue, for example, that we're already essentially a mixture of technology and humans, right? We're already cyborgs. The reason I say that is because everybody here has one of these, right? Some of us have two of them. If I lose these, I lose my ability to do my job. I lose my ability to get Ubers and have transportation. I lose my ability to reach out to my friends. I don't have any of my friends' phone numbers memorized anymore like I did 30 years ago. I don't even know my parents' phone numbers. And so we already are fully integrated with this technology. And I think that integration will speed up as we move forward. But I think we are at the dawn of a true golden age that will last a very long time. And so it's just a matter of how do we adapt to a changing ecosystem and a changing technological landscape.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or right now? Okay, it looks like you can go ahead and continue.
All right. So do you guys want me to focus in on any of the specific areas we talked about, or do you want me to talk through some of my predictions of which companies are going to do well for acquisition purposes? Of everything I've talked about, where do you guys want me to double click?
I think the latter, we're an M&A group.
Cool. So you guys, for as far as M&As, you guys focus more on SMBs. Am I correct?
I think so.
Yes.
I think it's more middle market. Yeah.
Middle market? Perfect. So there's going to be a couple of things. One of the things we're already seeing from a macro perspective, from macro trends, are a lot of roll-ups. So as you all probably already know, a lot of the large tech companies will wait to see who wins the smaller markets and who already does well, both in terms of teams as well as clientele and revenue. And then they buy up all of those, or whether they're large tech companies or PEs, will buy up a bunch of small ones, wrap them in a much larger company, and then deliver more value, right? And so there's a lot of areas where that's going to be the case. So let's focus on several of them. So on the space side, there are a lot of small challenges that need to be solved. Now, every one of these challenges need a lot of expertise. And so it's unlikely that one company will solve all of them simultaneously, but there's a huge opportunity for small teams to identify specific challenges that need to be solved for the global space race 2.0, solve that problem, and then sell the solution to that problem within a couple of years, especially if they have large cap customers like the federal government, like NASA and Space Force. And so one of the things I'm looking out for when I invest my VC money, and one of the things that I mentor companies to do, the ones that I advise, is to find solutions for NASA and for Space Force, deliver those solutions in a highly secure way, because you have to have the extremely high level of security so you don't get hacked by China or whoever, Russia. And then once you have those contracts, the value of those contracts is significantly higher. So for example, one of my companies is in the middle of a partnership right now. Part of the contract stipulates that before the contract is finalized, for every additional SMB or enterprise sale that they make, the value of the company goes up by $10 for every dollar of revenue, which is pretty standard. But for every dollar of contract from the federal government, the value of the company goes up by $25. Because it's well understood that if you're able to deliver something to the federal government, not only are you able to maintain that contract for a much longer period of time before it churns, but there's a much higher likelihood that if you deliver value appropriately, it is very easy for the contract size to get much larger and larger. And so there's a lot of value there to find the companies that are able to solve those problems in one of those sectors that I mentioned, everything from live, work, play, data, mining operations, entertainment, and so forth in space. If you can solve those problems, then you can be part of those roll-ups as large companies try to bring a lot of that value in. That same thing can be said for AI. So really any low tech industry can be effectively disrupted with artificial intelligence, right? So anything from trucking to laundromats to any kind of service industry, there's a whole host of entrepreneurs right now that are attacking all of those industries and figuring out what are the areas that cost the most in terms of labor and capital. How do we automate those processes to solve the most challenging problems in those industries using artificial intelligence, and then selling that tool to the largest players in that market, or alternatively, selling that tool to PEs or large cap companies or others who can bring those together. So if I was in acquisitions, that's one of the things I would be paying very close attention to. All these new companies from college kids and 20-something-year-olds who are pursuing this. Now, usually in order to build these very effectively, you need to have the young AI native folks that deeply understand how to use these AI tools paired up with industry professionals that have a deep understanding of some of the challenges that those people face. So let's talk crypto for a second. Crypto is also scaling out. This is an area that I didn't talk about in the previous part of the conversation. But now that there are very substantial rules of the road, crypto executives are no longer being debanked or arrested for no reason. What we're seeing is an explosion of crypto technology being used to solve very real problems. Everything from real estate to provenance to shipping. So one of the things in shipping, for example, and this is just one example kind of randomly, is when medicine is shipped internationally, oftentimes in areas that have, let's call it, not the best security, or they're not high trust societies or what have you, every player in that entire value chain takes some of the material and either just straight up steals it or tries to replace it. So we're seeing a lot of that in the developing world, where medicine that gets shipped out, people in the intermediate steps will steal some of that medicine and then replace it with either placebos or just random things, which obviously can cause massive issues. I had several days of meetings with Maersk out of Europe, out of Denmark, about this, and this is something that for the past 5 years they've been trying to solve, and it's a very difficult problem to solve. Now with crypto and AI, there are ways to address this much more effectively. Of course, we know the dangers of this, right? If you're sending medicine all over the world and the medicine is being replaced by something else, people can be poisoned, or if they think they're using medicine, they're really not. Their illness can be exacerbated. And so with crypto, for example, you can provide provenance along every step of the way. You can make sure that the material isn't changed through a variety of mechanisms. There's other use cases as well. And of course, crypto has had a bad rap in some circles because of some of the more shady elements of pump and dumps and so forth. But the underlying technology can be used, right? So the question is going to be, how do we use these technologies in a way that solve very specific problems in these various industries in a way that makes it automated and much easier? Any other questions? I know we're coming up to time here. And I know, Roger, we skipped, there was going to be another breakout for everybody, and we skipped that for me to come on when you were rejoining. I see Candace has a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Candace.
Sure. Thanks, Bryan. Very interesting presentation. My question is about AI guardrails. If you could comment at all on how you see those guardrails being developed, the significance of that to forward-moving business, and AI development in general? I'd appreciate it.
That's
Thank
a fantastic question. That's something that I've hosted events talking specifically on that for 8 years now. The event I hosted on Necker Island that brought together some of the top minds in artificial intelligence to have specific conversations around that. How do we make sure we build AI the right way so we don't accidentally destroy the world? And how do we make sure that it is productive for all of humanity? And so let's start with what doesn't work. So the EU AI Act was an abject failure. And I've had conversations with people that wrote that act and the number two at the United Nations about this specifically. Why was it an abject failure? Well, when they passed it, a number of the largest companies, AI companies in the world, removed their most advanced AI from Europe. Google, Apple, Facebook, and a bunch of others, Ahura and a bunch of others. And 1,000 companies said, okay, well, we're only going to give you the old versions of AI that have no danger of getting in trouble here. And all of our most advanced ones, we're just not going to deliver to the people of Europe. So the outcome of that was that European businesses and European individuals are now operating at a massive competitive disadvantage compared to the rest of the world because they just don't have access to the best AI models. What does work? Well, another thing that doesn't work is a patchwork of 50 different sets of regulations from 50 different states because that's just not going to work. Corporations aren't going to spend the money to figure out how to deliver to they're just going to pick which state they're going to go in and what have you. Plus, there's a supremacy clause. The probable thing is we're going to have to find a balance at a federal level between enabling our AI community to continue building, continue innovating, and making sure we beat China. Because remember, China and Russia are not even having a conversation about guardrails. They don't care. And they are just building as fast as they can. And whoever wins the AI race is going to win all the marbles. So on the one hand, we want to make sure we don't slow down our AI community. We want to keep innovation going. We don't want to be burdensome with regulations. On the other hand, we want to make sure that we don't cause externalities and harm a bunch of people. We don't want to put, nuclear bombs in the hand of, every 12-year-old that wants access to it. And so where is that balance? Well, somewhere in the middle. And we don't exactly know where that is, but our federal government is working on it. We have some of the top people from the AI industry working very closely with the government to figure out how do we make sure we win and at the same time keep our people safe. But it's going to be a balancing act, and we're going to continue getting it closer and closer to the final answer as we move forward. So kind of like how you build tech companies, right? You drive your plane off of the cliff while you're building the engine and hope you can finish building the engine before you hit the ground.
Hey, Shailendra, you get the last question. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Roger. So, Jason, really quick, you mentioned AI disrupting low-tech industries. I was wondering if you can make it real with an example. I mean, pick plumbing, for example. If my toilet breaks, I am going to have to call a plumber, right? Or my air conditioning breaks, HVAC. I mean, what disruption do you see happening in those kinds of trades?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think things like plumbing is probably going to be the last thing to be disrupted by AI. However, what we're seeing from, for example, Optimus is if Optimus delivers on what we believe it's going to deliver, it'll be able to cook for you. It'll be able to do surgery at home. It'll be able to do your plumbing. So that's what the world models are all about, right? The world models are about building an entire AI framework that enables the artificial intelligence, especially one that has the ability to move and engage with the real world with hands and legs, for it to be able to do all of those things on our behalf.
I assume with robots, yeah? I mean, you'd have to
I'm
have
sorry?
you'd have to have robots, right? With
Yeah.
physical arms and legs to be able to cook the
I
toilet or
suspect
cook for you and all that, yeah.
anybody that's actually engaged with the Optimus 3, so the latest version of the Optimus,
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be more families that have Optimus robots than have cars. It's going to be, look, do you remember over the past 30 years, right? I mean, I'm maybe showing you my age right now, but when I was a kid, if I wanted to change the TV channel, I'd have to get up and press the button on the TV. If I wanted to keep up with my friends, I would have to pick up the phone, dial their phone number, and say, hey, what's been going on in your life? Oh, you got engaged. Cool. I mean, obviously, I was a kid, so that wouldn't be a conversation. If I wanted food, I had to go to a grocery store, specifically pick out the things I want and bring them back. Because of these things and because of technology, all of our life has changed over the past 30 years. If you take someone from today and plop them into 30 years ago, you'd be like, what? What the heck? You want me to do what? I'm sorry? And if you take someone from 30 years ago to bring them today, they would go, holy cow, this is so completely different than everything I've experienced. What we're seeing right now, because of the speed and rate of change, is that the amount of change we've seen over the past 30 years, we're going to see in the next 2. So I believe that when Optimus robots are available for $20,000 each, which is likely the price, everybody's going to get one.
Yeah.
Now, at the beginning, they're going to be a little bit more expensive. So first, it's going to be the people that have the resources to buy them. But when people realize that when you have Optimus robots and you no longer have to spend any time cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, fixing your toilet, doing any of those things, people are going to say, are you kidding me? That's like having a full-time staff.
Yeah.
And so
and the real power of that is just the fact that when one robot learns how to fix your sink, 1,000 robots automatically know that, right? Because of AI gets spread among the whole fleet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what's really interesting is in Elon's Fremont factory, Tesla, every single one of the workers has cameras on their hands, on their heads. Everything they do is recorded. Now, what are they doing with all of that data? That is flowing into the world model, so that all the Optimus robots that are rolling off the line, they're going to first teach them how to make more Optimus robots. And so they're able to expand the factories, expand the footprint, expand the number of Optimus robots they can build. And so I'm sure all of you can see that this is an exponential growth curve. And the reason all these folks are willing to do so, and this is a competitive advantage, by the way, that Tesla has, that nobody can touch with them. Do you think European companies, Benz, Mercedes, BMW, whatever, are going to allow their unions, are going to allow them to have video cameras that will replace the workers? Hell no. Do you think any of the companies out of Detroit are going to do that? No, the unions are going to say this is an existential risk for our workers. They're going to be replaced. Now, the workers in the Tesla factories say, hey, number one, we have shares in Tesla. Number two, we're making ourselves even more valuable because once we do this, and once we're no longer needed by Optimus, Elon's going to put us in one of the other factories. And there's so many different factors. There's so many different use cases that they have amazing job security. And so they're willing to take that risk and be on the cutting edge of this. And so my suspicion is that they're the ones that are going to win. Now, Elon has done a great job of having a whole bunch of companies that all interact with each other, right? You have the biggest databases, and he's able to build them faster than any other AI company. And this is according to Jensen. And he has the factories, he has the cars. All his Teslas are creating a significant amount of video data that they're able to take in and put into the world model. Twitter provides a ton of real human conversation that they're able to put into the AI models. And so all of the different companies build on top of each other, where 1 + 1 + 1 isn't equal to 3, it's 27.
Yeah. Well, we could go down that thread about displacing labor for another hour, but we are at the end. In fact, we're a little over. It's fascinating, Bryan. I really want to thank you for doing it. You did the whole thing without slides too, so even more amazing. But I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for taking time out. And I'm going to go ahead and conclude the meeting. This has been the Silicon Valley January meeting of the M&A Provisors M&A Silicon Valley Affinity Group. I'm Roger Royce with Haynes Boone in Palo Alto. Thanks everybody for being here, and we will see you all next month. Sorry,
Thank you all.
next month. And hey, Chris, I gather we didn't record this. Is that right?
We did.
Oh, we did.